Hi, everyone, and welcome to SporTView. My name is Jay Wyman, and I'm here with Tom Emmons. Tom, welcome. And we have a tremendous show for you tonight. This is, pay attention to this one because you're going to hear a lot of history about Holliston football. So, Tom, why don't you introduce our guest?
Well, we've got a great guest for you, Ken Dunn, class of '76, and he has spearheaded the Holliston Panther Football History Project, and it's just amazing. We love Panther football I've been involved since 2006 with HCAT. Jay goes back a few other years before that, but now to see the pages go to the late 1800s forward, and Ken, you've starting to put it all together in one place. Tell us about this project that you've undertaken.
Well, I started the project about Thanksgiving of 2013. I was watching the team go through the playoffs, and they lost, I think, in one of the games finally. And I asked somebody that I knew, I said, so what is the history of this team? How many championships have they won? Because I didn't know what had happened since I graduated in '76. Mm-hmm. And nobody could tell me anything. And I said, well, do you have records? I'd like to see what the records are. And I'm just sort of a numbers guy. And so nobody could tell me anything. I called the high school. I said, I'm just curious. Do you know how many champions? And they said they had a banner in the gym that gave a certain number. And I said, well, I'm wondering if there is more backwards, because they started at 1970, 71, I think they started the banner thing. And so I just started asking people about the football team and went out and decided that I was going to get these scores back into our history and get it all put together because nobody had anything, including none of the schools in our league. The Tri-Valley League doesn't have any organization, doesn't have any kind of keeping records. So I went and put those all together too.
Mm-hmm. Now, where do you even start?
Well, I wrote a book back in 1991, 92, for the Messiah College, where I went to school and played baseball. They didn't have their records that went back to like 1965, and so I put together the Messiah College Baseball Encyclopedia. That was like a 700-page book. It was before computers, and that took 3.5 years to put together. I got box scores for every game, and the people were just, the team and the school were just going crazy about that. So, but that took so much of my life, and I didn't want to even see numbers for about 10 years. But I'm a numbers guy, and I started thinking, well, I wonder how far Holliston football goes back. And I heard all the stories, football stopped for 30 some odd years, and it was because somebody got killed on the football field or something. And I said, well, I think that's history that needs to be figured out. So where do you start? You go back to the newspapers, and you go back to the alumni, and you start interviewing people. Because the school wasn't a whole lot of help, the AD doesn't have any records. So I just went back to the Framingham News. I started there, Framingham Library, started doing the microfilm, getting cross-eyed. I did that for 13 hours a day for about a week back in February. And then I came back in June, went to the Milford Library and did that for a week, and 12, 13-hour days looking at microfilm, and just put it all together, everything I could find. Now, I don't have it all. I don't have it all as far as before 1957, but we have everything from 57 up.
So one of the things we want to do is, as people are watching tonight, and you're hearing some of the stories that we'll be talking about, is think about if you have anything anywhere in your basement or something. We'll give a place to email you and everything, to get in touch with you later on in the show. But as we're talking about these things, it might be something you did, or maybe, hopefully, something your grandfather did or great-grandfather playing in Holliston. So if you have any of that, as we're going through these things, make sure to get that information and get it to Ken.
Yeah, and one of the things that we have just about every newspaper article you can get now. I finished up this week. I've been working all week again. And we're pretty much got what we're going to get. What I'd really love to see is if you can find photos that don't exist in the newspapers, photos that don't exist anywhere else. And especially if somebody is, some of the older folks that are old Holliston folks that have people that played back before the 1925 season, you got photographs we would love to see those. I'll scan them and get them into our system because we really don't have but 2 or 3 photographs of football for the old days.
Mm-hmm. Plus programs, at some of the games they put
That's right.
together, get programs together. Been through a lot of the yearbooks. That was when you and I connected. You got me excited about this whole project. I drove to the library and looked at every yearbook that was there and took pictures of every football page that was on, that had anything with football on it. And, right now, it's really exciting. After you've finished your February jaunt, I'll call it, you had all the scores from 1957 right up to 2014. Right. Every coach, every game score. I mean, that's an amazing accomplishment as it is, just to look at that, look at the team's records against all the other Tri-Valley League teams and the coaching records and, have all the playoffs in there and now start to fill it out with some of the real stories, like what happened in these games, know, which you're going to get, you get some of it from the newspaper articles, but some of it you get from people like Cecil Wright, people who live those games.
That's right. Right. Well, I got to tell you, there's some from the old stuff, 1925 and earlier. Mm-hmm. You have some absolutely amazing and crazy stories. For instance, we played Milford in a 3-game set in 1901, and a guy from a Holliston graduate who went to Harvard was coaching the team, and they lost the first game, they won the second game, but in the second game, they hit somebody too hard, and he got seriously injured, and so Milford just said they weren't going to show up for the third game. Mm-hmm. That's one of those stories that you sit there and you go, you couldn't do that today. You can't do that. There's no crying in football.
No.
Well, the interesting thing is the name of that coach is Fred Cutler.
That's right.
Which is a name that goes back to Cutler School, long-time Holliston name.
I was trying to figure out if there was some, and his family is the one that I think that's named after.
Yeah. Well, since we're back in the Wayback Machine near the turn of the century, talk about the beginnings of Holliston football that included high school players eventually turning into Holliston high school football. What have you found out?
Well, back in, I went to the Historical Society, spent a lot of time this week with Joanne Hulbert, and she was she has a ton of information. If you want to know anything about Holliston, just go ask her, because she can answer it off of memery. This lady
I believe I told you to go give her a call.
And she has more energy than anybody I know. So she thought the first year was 1897, and I was thinking, well, it's somewhere in that range. I didn't have any information on 1897 except one score that showed up in the Boston Globe that I found online with Hopkinton. Back then, Hopkinton was sort of like the team. They were a big team. They must have had somebody really good coaching them because they won a lot of games. And we tried not to play them too often early on. But we went into the newspapers that she had at the Historical Society and found the entire 1897 season in there. So I have all the scores and everything was in there. But they were the stories were written in such a way that I thought, it sounds like they've been there before. It's not like it was their inaugural season. So she was certain that it was. I wasn't so certain. So yesterday, I think it was yesterday or what's today, Thursday. So I went back after dinner. I went to the Milford Library, and I just wanted to take a look at 1896 because we didn't have 1896 in the Historical Society. And sure enough, I finally get myself to November, and there it is. The article says the very first football game ever played by Holliston High School.
Yeah, I read it today. I read the thing today.
And I just sat there and I thought, oh, great. Now I got the first game. I wonder if I can get the rest of it. And they had every single game in the paper.
It told the street address. They played across the street from
A.J. Cass's house. Yeah.
And the interesting thing there, too, is they were able to play 3 games against an independent club team called the Grattans, or Grottons. I'm not sure how you say it. But they played 3 games against them, 4 games against some high schools, and had a 7-game season, and it was all began right there.
I've read the articles that you posted up, Ken, and just seeing it was a little bit, there were Holliston, it was a Holliston team made up of high school players, but then there were also independent teams that were put together. I was wondering what the Grattan Football Club was as well, whether you just mistyped it as Grafton, but turns out there were a couple of independent teams. One of them was the Garrick's Football Club, which
Right.
was Holliston's first sports pub.
Yeah, there was Garrick's, there was Grattan's, and there was the Crescents. And
Yeah.
I'm not sure who they all are, but they, Joanne took a look at the names that were in those teams, and she says, well, they're all Holliston people.
Yeah.
I don't know how old these guys are, but they're playing the high school kids, and the high school kids went 101. They won a game, they tied a game, and they lost a game in the first year there. So it's just exciting when you get the information all together. So we have the first 2 years fully completed. We have pieces and parts of different years. I have 1905. There was a fever going around. I think scarlet fever was going around, and they had a big injury. The high school consisted of 42 kids in the high school, right?
And
so
you need
there's
11 for football, so.
there's about 20 boys, and freshmen through senior, and then so they go through. They have some people are getting sick, and then some guys got injured, and before you know it, they just right in the middle of the season, they call everybody up and say, we can't play any more football because we don't have anybody to play. So that was why the 1905 season started and stopped after like 3 or 4 games. Same thing happened in 1909. It looks like they didn't play, 6, 7, or 8. We're not sure of that yet. We're still working on that. But in 1909, they went through another one of these. They got through about 5 games. They won some games, and somebody got hurt. The main player got hurt, and some other player got hurt, and they're playing both ways. And then they all came down with sickness or something. And then the coach says, you're not doing well in your classes. So he just said, we're canceling the rest of the season, and they stopped.
Well, the name in 1909, one of the left ends that's listed in the paper has a last name of Fisk. Of course,
Yeah,
Fisk
we
General
know where
Store.
that is, right?
And you just, so seeing Holliston history way back there, you want to find out who these people are, if we can, through either their families or additional articles.
Well, one of the great things too that when you read the beginnings, those first 10 to 12 years, Medway is like our counterpart. It's like our rival team. They're the ones that we play twice every year, sometimes 3 times, and they are sort of like on our level. And so they want to play each other a lot more than they didn't want to go up against the big Hopkinton team. I don't know what Hopkinton had going on then. Did they have steroids back then? I have no idea. But they were winning games against some big schools.
Maybe a lot of athletes because of that's before the marathon, right?
Yeah,
Oh,
Hopkinton.
yes. Yeah, the marathon then was, yes. No, it wasn't before the marathon.
Right.
But I don't know if it had changed the routes then because it started in Ashland.
But Hopkinton and Ashland had the big rivalry, and they had 2 pretty good teams. And I guess they didn't like each other that much or something. And so they were really working hard.
I can vouch for that because
They were working very hard to build their football team to beat them at the end of the year.
Well, that's the longest rivalry, right? In the
Metro West.
And Metro West is Holliston and Ashland on
They started
Thanksgiving.
1921. They started that.
Well, bring us up to the 20s when football sort of starts to stop.
Well, in 1909, because the guys got sick, they got hurt, they weren't doing well in school, and the economy wasn't real good, and the Holliston I went through the Holliston town records that are in the library. I was in there all morning and reading that, and they didn't have a lot of support financially for the school. So to get uniforms, to have a field ready to play on, was difficult. So they just sort of stopped playing football after that 1909 season. It just doesn't exist. And they went into basketball, and their basketball team romps everybody. Because if you were a boy athlete, you played basketball. And they won like 30 some odd games in a row in those teen years. Somewhere around 1918, 1919, they start trying to field a team again for football. And by the time you get to 23, 24, they're in the Tri-County League, which consisted of Millis and Medway specifically. And then they also had Upton and Hopedale and somebody else in there. And in 25, we won that conference or that league because Millis and Medway were the only 2 teams that had football teams in 1925. We played them on home and away series, so we went 4-0, and we actually won that Tri-County League. It's not a big league, but the reality is it's a championship that we have to add to the banner kind of thing. So we're going to do that, right?
Yeah, sure.
We'll push on that.
I don't know.
There should be a banner, right?
And the interesting reason, that was our final season that we played before we get to 1957. The big reason why the team stopped playing.
And this is
Do you wanna
breaking
know?
news. This is breaking news because the story the legend goes that somebody was killed and they stopped playing. But that's not true, right?
Joanne Hulbert, I asked her, I said, can we confirm or not confirm? She says, I have never found anything about that. No one ever died on our football field. And I've not found anything on that. But what I did was, when I was in the town records, find out that the school was having difficulties with finances. And the coach who brought the 23, 4, and 5 teams to somewhat of a prominence, they had a winning record, they had good teams, they won more games than they lost each year apparently. And I don't have all the numbers for that, but the coach was Thomas Newell. I originally thought it was Peter Newell because somebody told me it was Peter Newell, but it's Thomas Newell. And he leaves the school in 1926, at the end of the 25-26 year, and goes up to Marlborough to coach. And they didn't replace with a football coach. There was no football thereafter, and it never came back until 1957.
But at that point in time, that's when they had the great basketball and baseball teams.
Basketball was ridiculously great all the way through. Somebody's going to have to do something on that, because they've won state championships and league championships year after year after year in the 19-teens. Actually, before the 1908, 1909, I was looking through the records that Joanne has, and they have season records of 18-1, 16-1. They won 33 or 34 games in a row. In a couple years there in 1912, 13, they had Alan Pond, I think his name is, playing, and apparently he was quite an athlete. And even in the 20s, you look at all the references to sports in the principal's report, and it always talks about the basketball team is doing great. They represent Holliston. Everybody in the state knows about Holliston basketball. So somewhere along the line, somebody has to do something on basketball. You guys ready to do that?
I don't know.
One sport at a time.
What we'll do, though, if someone does it, we'll bring them on. How's
Yeah, there
that?
you go.
That's right. And when it starts again in 57, one of the things I saw in one of the articles you found was Holliston hoping to replicate the great success that they've had in basketball and baseball. And I didn't know if you'd crisscrossed any of that with your Mudville baseball.
Yeah, no, we go before that. We're way into the 1800s. We play Civil War rules and things like that. So we're way back when we're talking.
Civil War rules. You bring your bayonets out in the field or something?
Well, if need be.
So now we come up to 1957.
Yeah.
And I read again. I've been reading all your stuff that you've been posting up, and it's just some great stuff. There was a town meeting vote in March of 1957 to bring football back to Holliston High School, and they hire a coach, Angie Insulaco, an assistant coach, Dave Stone, and
they couldn't have gotten a better guy. The guy is inspirational. He was spectacular. I mean, the first 2 games, you play a 2-game season in 57 and you lose them both, but the reality is he learned and the team learned how to play football in 1 year, because in 1958 they have a winning record. It's not a bad record. I can't remember.
4-3-1.
Yeah, 4-3-1. And then 59 they win the South Central League. In 61 and 62 they win the South Central League. I mean, this guy is a good coach.
Yeah.
Well, he goes on. Angie Insulaco goes on from coaching Holliston to going to Framingham, and coached at Framingham North High School and was their athletic director for many years. I think that's where he retired from.
Yeah, from everybody I talked to, Bill Phipps, a couple other players he had, they tell me he was just fantastic. People person, encourager, inspirational guy, and he got a lot out of his players. He didn't have a lot of players. I mean,
No, he didn't.
And back in 1957 was also the year they were building the brand new high school, now we know as the Adams School. And the cost of that school, $1.5 million. It included a modern football field, which
That's right.
was somewhat of an irregularity in those times, but Holliston had a football field at the Adams School.
I played there.
And
I played football there in the Adams School.
You did?
Yes, I did, yeah.
And I'm guessing that town meeting vote was, again, they're talking about how much they're going to spend for the school, and are they going to spend some money to put a football field? Because the high school before that time was up behind the town hall and had, at some time it burned down, but being up on that hill behind the town hall, there wasn't any football field room. Basketball team played at the town hall, but they didn't really have a football field. So that was kind of a big deal. And then in '58, I was just telling you before the show, the interesting thing, center for the '58 team was Joe Damigella, and his father, Joseph Damigella, got a scoreboard just like the Bowditch Field scoreboard for the new Holliston football team for that field.
Yeah, I'm actually friends with a guy named Henry Bullard. Now, Henry was quite a football player, I guess. In '57, I think he was the MVP of the team in '58 or '59.
yes,
And
one of those.
And he talked a little bit about football here and there because being from Ashland, we go back and forth a little bit. But I heard he was really good, but never realized how really good he was. And he was up there with the leading scorers in the area back then.
I mean, we were immediately a presence in this whole area on football when we came in '58, really. And they won the first game they played in '58. They beat Leicester. I think that's how we say that.
Leicester.
Yeah.
I said it wrong. But the reality is they beat a good team, and they beat him up.
Yeah.
They carry Sulaco off the field. He's only coached like 2 games in '57.
Right.
The first game in '58, he's being carried off the field like he's a Green Bay Packer coach.
Interesting that '58 season they lost to Linfield, which Holliston
we beat yes.
Linfield last year in the playoffs. I never would have thought they had faced Linfield before, and it was a revenge match in 2014.
Well, that's one of the things when I did all of the records and then I start putting everything together. You do that, your record against opponents, and all I can say is this team from this day forward needs to make a personal choice. Beat Westwood every time you play them because we got to catch up and get ahead of those guys.
That's the only team, right?
That's the only team we're losing to, and well, we don't lose a lot to them, but we lose enough to them that we don't have enough wins on that, and I want to.
Well, now we're able to
fix
make
that.
it up because we play them 2 to 3 times every year now, so we have the opportunity to make it up.
That's another thing.
That's another thing for a whole other show.
That's like the old days. Play a team 3 times.
Yeah, no, it was great to see some of the comments on Facebook, and you do have. We should mention you have all this information up on Holliston Panther football team history on Facebook. You don't have to belong to Facebook to
get on
get on there. If you just Google Holliston Panther football team history, it'll show you the link to that, and you can go into photos.
So the most important thing is to know that you got to go into the photos. You got to get into the album, and every
Click
year
on album.
Every year has a photo album, and the photos are all of the articles.
Yeah.
So.
But seeing comments from Bill Phipps, on Facebook talking about that season, and he was quite a player there.
Oh yes, he was.
Quarterback.
He was a running back, but he had 3 touchdown passes and 8 running touchdowns. He was the top scorer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The guy is just phenomenal. But nobody knew. I mean, this time 2 years ago, nobody knew these people. Well, you may have known of them, and you may have heard that they played football for Holliston, but you didn't know what they did. So the hope is now that we've got everything, we're going to have someone, hopefully, I was going to go into the school here and say to the history teacher, one of the things that you should do is do a project for extra credit for these kids and have them go in, and each one takes a year and compiles off of the articles yardage, TDs, things, and do something like that. Because I said when I gave my thumb drive to Joanne to download, 2,500 and some odd articles. It took her 15 minutes on her fast speed little computer to get it all down onto her computer. I said, I can't do all this. I'll be doing this for years. We need to bring people in to do that and put the years together.
Well, you're priming the pump pretty good, you know, and it's exciting that, again, with the success the team is having currently with their run, now to talk about its start in the modern day of 57, 58, 59, a championship in the South Central League, and I think there's a trophy for one of their South Central League champions in the trophy case down outside the gym. But the next sort of wave of history that happens is the beginning of the Tri-Valley League in 1967.
You know, there's a story there too. I was talking to a number of people, different ADs from other schools, trying to get information out of them, and you know, they don't know anything either. Medfield. The Medfield AD says, well, we won the first 3 championships. I had to call him back and say, by the way, you've won the first 4 Tri-Valley League championships. It started in 66, not 67, and you have 4 in a row to start off. And he was like, oh, I didn't know that. How can you not know that?
Yeah.
How do you know your history?
The time back then, the collection of information wasn't as, I don't want to say as important, but people didn't pay as much attention to it because they didn't collect it because A, they had nowhere to collect it, and I mean now you have the databases and you have all this stuff
right.
on the and B, the other problem is that gathering this information, because nobody kept it anywhere, it was tough to gather it. Now, as people like yourself go through and you start putting stuff together on Facebook and all these other places, now they have an opportunity with all the genealogy stuff coming up now, the Ancestry.com and all this stuff. There are places to go look this stuff up too. So
right.
I think you're going to see an explosion in this now, this type of thing you're doing.
But that Tri-Valley League, though, started because I think the South Central League was sort of spread out a little bit and you know, the teams that are now in the Tri-Valley League, they're the old Tri-County League. It's the same teams.
Well, coming up to the more modern era, into the 1971 was the first State D championship, undefeated teams in 71 and 72 by Tom Cato. Brought in sort of a real heyday of football. It was just a remarkable time that a lot of us remember here. Tom Cato and that 1975 team beat the ratings. Little story behind it, they had a game scheduled against Bishop Fenwick. And I got this from Steve Curley. He said Bishop Fenwick had to cancel because of a conflict they had, and not having that game on the schedule gave them the points to go and face Hanover in the 1975 Super Bowl. Now they lost that game, but they came back the next year in 1976. And we have some actual video highlights, different than you won't find that at the Framingham News, of the 1976 Holliston Panthers, undefeated, facing the undefeated Medway Mustangs in the game, the game of the day. WBZ TV was down here to take a look at the game, and we've got some clips to show you on that right now. that was great for me personally, Jay, because number 18 in that first clip was me on the football field, a play, sort of a quarterback sneak draw play where I went 18 yards up the field, helping out the Panthers that day. Mark Abramo then throwing that beautiful pass to Jeff Denman to get it into field goal range, and then Jeff kicking that field goal just before the half, to 3-0 win. We talked about it when we saw the Christian Baker kick against Medway in 2009, right?
Yeah.
And then the couple of clips there at the end, there's even more film than that. We had to cut it down, but Medway's offense was just in the red zone like forever, like 20 plays, and the Panthers were able to shut them out that day.
Refused to yield.
Refused to yield. Got to go back in the Wayback Machine. Something we missed before going to that clip was 1967, Holliston versus Ashland. The first time that Holliston beats Ashland. Take it away, Jay.
Well, I was on the field that day, and Holliston won.
But not for the red and black.
No, I was on the field for Ashland, for the good guys, and it was I'm outnumbered here, 8-2 win by Holliston, and actually the 2 points Ashland scored obviously was a safety. One of our players, Steve Jacindelet, tackled somebody in the end zone for the safety, but Holliston scored a touchdown, and then they got a safety, and ironically enough, they tackled Steve Jacindelet in the end zone for safety. So he made a safety and he got a safety at the same time. So that's my story. It was the first time that Holliston had beaten Ashland in 1967.
And that's when you saw the light. And later on, that would turn into you moving your family to Holliston, and the rest is history, as they say. Well, we've got to fast forward a little bit. Going on through the 80s, the Panthers in 1981, they win their first Super Bowl, which is exciting.
Right.
85, they win their second Super Bowl. They're actually at 81, they were in Schaefer Stadium. 85, they were at BU. A couple more Super Bowl appearances in 89 and 91.
Right.
And then a little bit of a drop-off in productivity for the Panther. And then 1989 graduate Todd Kiley shows up and takes the head coaching job in 2003 and says, I'm going to restore this tradition. And Todd has certainly done that and is now in his 13th season with the Panthers.
So what we did is we put together a little, I guess you call it collage.
Yeah.
These are some film clips that we took one play from each year from 2001 to 2014. Now Todd came in 2003. So the first 2 years are under Coach Buckley, and the last ones are under Coach Kiley.
Now, it's important to note, in 1985-86, that's when HCAT started. Mm-hmm. And HCAT started
doing games,
broadcasting games in the mid-'80s. Jerry Kiley, Todd's father, was one of the broadcasters, along with our own Bill George. And, so there was the play-by-play team. The problem is it was expensive to keep all the games on tape, so they would tape over those games, and we don't really have any of that vintage film, but we'd love to find it, hopefully in somebody's basement,
So let's take a look at this little montage that we put together.
First down and 10, ball is spotted at about the 12, 13-yard line. Again, power eye right.
Unbalanced line left.
Pitch to the left side. Back to Motto, who cuts it to the outside, and he's in for the score.
Woo-hoo!
Untouched.
Nice speed. Again, he uses that burst of speed to round that corner, and no one could touch him.
Yep, looking sharp tonight. So that makes the score 12-8 with the extra point attempt coming up.
Hopefully after the extra point. Oh, here it is.
There, we got it on replay. Look at that blocking out front. Nice lead block. After that, he just walks it in. First and goal for Holliston from the 1-yard line. Again, they have jumbo right formation.
Burke up the middle.
Off to Burke, and he's in for a touchdown. Touchdown, Holliston, number 20, John Burke on the carry. I formation behind Perino. The screen over
pass.
this side.
Oh, he's got a convoy. He's got a convoy.
The blockers are looking for someone to hit.
He could be gone.
He is
gone. He's gone.
Looking for flags. No flags.
No flags.
Touchdown. John Burke.
John Burke. What a call.
Boy, did you see
What a convoy of blockers he had.
the great blocking out front. Both of the offensive guards out there, Craig Sheehan and Chris Harrington, had pulled, and they're standing around looking for someone to block.
I know it. There was nobody there.
They just decided to run down the field with them and scored them into the end zone.
All right, so Holliston's 1st and 10, second drive of the night here. Perino, we got Zach Rogers in the background, in the fullback, sorry. Tailback is Menapace.
Now we got a pass.
Perino's back to pass. He's got an open Valiant. He's got it. He could go all the way. He does. Touchdown.
Touchdown.
What a connection from Perino to Valiant. Beautiful. He just laid that pass out there. Valiant just burned this.
Valiant burnt his defender. It was a perfect pass from Perino. Valiant took it in stride, and touchdown Holliston.
All right, but we're going for it. 4th and 4. They're going to
nice
roll
block.
out.
Look
Great
at the
blocking
block.
by Zach. The ball's out there. Peter Kuski makes a catch for the touchdown.
Oh, my.
Mark Peter Kuski. Great adjustment to the ball.
Boy.
He's the man. What a great blocking there by Derek Wilson and Zach Rogers in the backfield, though, too, to allow Joe to get the pass off. Tremendous blocking.
And that duo's back next year, too, Santos and Peter Kuski. What a great play.
Oh, Peter Kuski, what a move to the ball.
Shortest penalty in the history of the Tri-Valley League.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty close. Now we're on about the 2-inch yard line here. Grady comes up with Edwards, Malomo, and Sakos behind him. Sakos in the middle. Grady rolls out and passes. Peter Kuski stoned. Peter Kuski's going to throw a block.
Yeah, he's got to come back.
Come back. Block.
There it is! Touchdown.
Bye-bye, baby. Bye-bye. 99 and 1/2 yards. 99 and 1/2 yards.
Beautiful play. Great ball fake by
What a block by Mark Peter Kuski.
Yeah, it was.
Wow.
Great timing, too, for him to wait and turn around and hit him.
Wow.
And we are down the 18-yard line, so we are inside the red zone.
And the wide side of the field is to Grady's right, and he's
Grady's
right in the
under center with Edwards in motion. There's the double fake. He rolls out to the right, looking over. Got him! Touchdown, Andrew Barron! His first varsity touchdown puts Holliston in the lead, 13 to 10.
Well, Tom, we talked about that a little earlier when they remember we talked about how that middle of that field opens up, and we said if he could send someone across the middle of that field, they're backing up so much that it opened it up. Well, the field wasn't that deep there, but Grady did a great job getting into Barron.
That'll bring up a 4th down and 10. Let's see what Coach Kiley decides to do now.
Well,
They just over midfield, and they're
you
going
might
to bring
want
the
to
punt team in.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. You might want to punt. 4:35. Let's play a little field position right now. Get the ball down there. Let your defense kind of take over and see if you can win this field position. Holliston still has a lot of timeouts, so if they get in a position where they can hold Millis down there, they can take their timeouts and get the ball further down the field.
Yep, 4:35 is plenty of time.
Uh-oh, fumble there.
There's Donovan. He's going to run it. He's got some room.
He's got it.
He's going to go. He could go all the way. He needs a block. Slow up. There he cuts it back. Tommy Donovan. Touchdown, Holliston.
And on a broken play, on a fumble, Tommy Donovan just picked it up and just took it in.
Tommy Donovan runs it 48 yards to pay dirt on a muffed punt. Although they might put that in the playbook next week. Well, we did see him the first night against Tingsboro where they had the punter sort of rolling out as if he was going to run.
Yep.
But Tommy Donovan showing some real legs in the open field. A good cutback, got a couple of blocks. Well, I took you in the Wayback Machine. Holliston does have a history of beating Medway with big kicks. Christian Baker, one of the best athletes on this team. We've seen him do it with his legs on this field. We've seen him do it with his hands.
Nice and easy. You can loft the ball. Nice and easy, just like an extra point. Ball is up, and it is going to be good.
A tremendous kick.
It's good.
5.7 seconds left. Christian Baker out of nowhere.
And the Panthers go crazy. The Big Red Machine goes crazy. It's 31-28 Holliston. Medway is just shaking their heads. They can't believe what just hit them. How could this happen?
Well, you can't play with fire. You can't play with fire like that. And Christian Baker, we knew he had the foot. We knew he could do it. And that's the same thing he did in the game against, was it Dover Sherburne when he had the 38-yarder?
38-yarder. That's a 30. Tim Stats Murphy gave us a 37-yarder on that placement. And Christian Baker is 5 seconds away from going down in history for game-winning kicks against Medway High School. So 2nd and goal. Driscoll to the right, cuts it up. Oh, what a hit!
And he was absolutely denied.
I think that was David Kriegsman that was in the hole. What a pop. We heard that one up here.
Yeah.
That was a major, major league collision. So personal foul against Spellman is going to put the ball inside the 10-yard line, actually on the 10-yard line, giving the Holliston Panthers a 1st and goal. This crowd comes to its feet. They're excited here. The Panthers are driving the ball with great precision, winning this football game, winning the physicality of this football game. 1st and 10 from the 10. Kevin Curry breaks it to the outside, looks at that goal line and scores! Kevin Curry with 3:11 to go here in the game has put the Panthers up 20-7.
Well, it's pretty close now. 3:11 left.
Sean Mayo getting out in front of that play, delivering a great block as this crowd goes wild. Kevin Curry with his 17th touchdown of the season. The Panthers line up for the extra point. Christian Baker with the kick. It's up. It's good. 21-7 with 3:11 to go. First and 10 for Holliston on their own 36-yard line as we are underway here at Comedian Field. Panther formation sets up in their spread. Quarterback Dan Barone hands off to, he takes it himself, slashes up the right side, and he is gone off to the races. 64-yard touchdown run on the first play of the game.
Well, I think Holliston has some tricks now too. And their trick is let's use our talent, let's use our speed, and let's get down there and score quickly. I told you tonight I thought one of the things we're going to see, Tom, is a lot of scoring, and I told you we'd probably see a lot of scoring from the seniors because I think Coach Kiley's going to feature them tonight. But boy, what a great job there by Dan Barone, and great blocking by the offensive line.
The kick is up, curves a little bit to the left, but it is good. And the Panthers are on the board with just 10 seconds off the clock with a 7-0 lead. That was the 16th touchdown of the season for Dan Barone as he leads the Panthers. Wow, Jay, what a start.
Well, yeah, and that's what I talked about with the trick plays. They're all well and good, but you better make sure they count, because if you give this team the ball, the short field, although that time wouldn't have mattered how long the field was, he would have been gone. But if you give them the short field like that, you know, Holliston's going to score a lot on them tonight.
The message is business as usual with practice, and get ready to take it to them on Friday. Hopkinton is a very good football team. We'll have our hands full, but our kids play with heart. And here's some heart of this team. Number 11, Max Anthony going around the left side, and he is in for a touchdown. A 39-yard touchdown run by Max Athey.
We talked about the speed earlier in the game and before the game even started, Tom, and we said, you know, this is something that I don't think Hopkins has really seen, this kind of speed coming from all different directions. And right now, you know, there's still a lot of game left here. You know, I want to say that. But right now, that Holliston speed is really controlling this ball game.
Elkinson to the right. Jay going to Elkinson. He's got it! Zach Elkinson with a touchdown catch! Wow!
It's great to be aggressive when you have a three possession lead, but you've got to be very, very wise about it. This is a team that can score quickly, and they have scored 2 touchdowns in somewhere around 30 seconds. And Holliston is right back in this. They're going to go for the PAT here. They're going to get the ball at the half. They're in great shape.
3 to go here in the first half. Panthers leading 22-0. They're going to have a 3rd down and 9. Nick Athey comes out. Panthers in the spread offense. Palomo the lone back. Athey lets it go. Up Nick Inman with the catch. Number 4, Nick Inman out to midfield. What a play by the senior wide receiver.
Well, okay, let's go back to how this play started. First of all, they got good blocking back there and gave Nick Athey a lot of time. And then Nick, with his bad ankle and all, was able to avoid a lot of tackles, able to avoid a sack, and able to avoid a safety. And then he throws the ball up in the air, and Nick Inman just really goes up and makes a beautiful catch. That's just a fact of Nick Inman wanting the ball more than anybody else who was out there, and that's a great play by Nick. He's done this several times in other games. He's come up with some big plays. That might be the biggest one so far this year for him.
Panthers are hoping to make it tough. Palomo on the left wing. Elkinson on the right. They go to number 3. Bounces off the line.
What a block.
He's got the sideline. Number 3 is Color Me Gone. Number 3. Touchdown, Elkinson.
What they're doing, Tom, is they're running right at Cole Morrison. Now, when you have a great defensive player, especially in the line, the way you neutralize that player is to run right at him, and that's what Holliston is doing. They're getting some good blocks, and Matt McIsaac threw a nice little block to spring him down here. Holliston goes up 28-0, 9:50 left in the 3rd quarter, and it's almost getting that time where you want to say Katie bar the door.
Great blocks in front of that play. Number 77, Mulvaney, and number 11, Matt McIsaac. Zach Elkinson bounced off that wall there and went in, but here's Joe Palomo, lowers the boom on the 2-point conversion.
All right, Joe Palomo will not be denied. He gets near that goal line and he just goes, and you know, he's got something like, I don't know, he's made all 3 of them, right? So he's got 6 points himself. It's going to be tough for him to catch Elkinson the rest of the way with Elkinson's 4 touchdowns, but.
Going back through those games, you know, brought back for me a lot of memories because I started around 05 or something like that, and we started doing away games, and now we're doing, of course, all the games here for HCAT. So I want to thank HCAT for providing those games for us, and of course the lovely Lisa helped me put that thing together.
Yeah, they're doing a Throwback Thursday. I've been trying to encourage Don and Dennis and Lisa to put those games up on the Throwback Thursdays because there's a lot of great exciting football games that HCAT has covered. You know, we've just really skipped. We were whipping through the 70s, 80s, and 90s. So many names, so many players that starred and then you know, went on to success even at Boston College or Penn State. And we really haven't had time to delve into that. We're going to have to bring you back, Ken, and as this project continues to go on, you know.
Now you talk about living. Are you out of state now? Or?
I live in North Carolina.
North Carolina.
Charlotte.
In Charlotte, North Carolina. Wonderful place.
So I've spent 3 trips up here already this year. Spent 3, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly.
It costs money to get up here.
Yeah.
But the fun of it is just putting it all together. And, you know, I get a big kick out of the not pointing at you, but the older guys and the kick they get out of, hey, you're revitalizing our history. So, and I don't think it's the first time Holliston beat Ashland.
Oh, they beat them before that.
I think we did back further, but
that was the headline in 1960. Holliston beats Ashland, first time ever in capital letters.
I get it, but they didn't know anything about 1925
well,
or before.
if you find that out, let me know, because I just can't sleep at night knowing that I was the first team to lose
I
to
think I
Holliston.
can figure that out for you.
Okay.
But it's just fun putting everything together.
It is. It's amazing. I mean, I go back, and of course, I'm graduated in '68, so I go back into the mid '60s, and the names I hear, kids we played against, and kids we knew, and I can imagine. And now, God, that was what, 40-something years ago, almost 50. And so I know what you're saying. So it's really important. Two things are really important. We really want to drive home tonight. First, get that information to Ken, and we'll tell you how to do that. And second, get in that web. If you have anybody or know of anybody that knows anybody anything in that era, go in there and I'll tell you, they will really get a kick out of this stuff. He actually has, as he said, the photos are actually the actual copies of the newspaper clippings, and even just the way they talk about things, it's really amazing how when they introduced the captains one year, they said he lives on Temmie Road or something like that. It's really amazing. You got to get in there and look at this stuff.
Yeah, and if anybody has anything really old, picture-wise, we could sure use it.
Well, that's great, and I just see this going on. Maybe someday it's a book. I know we've talked about it. We talked about trying to put together some magazines, like a history magazine every year that might be something that would be available to folks because there's just so much great information there. And I tell you, Ken, congratulations. The first time we connected and we had dinner on your first trip up here, I knew you were really onto something, and I wanted to help any way I can. But you are the fullback guy. I tell you, you've gone into that line.
Just give me the ball.
And give you the ball, and putting all those numbers and all those years and names and getting all the articles there, that's really the skeleton. And now we can start to put some meat on the bones with all these additional stories and statistics and try to get the years sort of comparing against each other. I mean, it's just going to be a great story when it's all done.
Tremendous amount of research, wasn't it?
And we are the holders now of any of the Tri-Valley information.
Well, we should be number one.
We hold it all. Should we sell it to the other schools?
Well, I think first make a few changes, and then we'll sell it to them. How's that?
No. We don't do anything bad. But we have all of the Tri-Valley records as far as the standings,
that's right,
champions, and
yes, it's
all that
there.
information. I have it all there in one, packet. So if anybody needs anything like that, like a newspaper to get accurate newspaper work, we'll certainly give it to them. So
okay, so we'll put up the website or the Facebook
page, the link to it.
Yeah, we'll put that up. Ken, thank you very, very much for coming in. This is not only a labor of love, but it's really important to a lot of people. And and as I said, I think a lot of the older people, when they see this, it'll bring back. And it's not just the football players. A lot of people look at this. There's cheerleaders in there. There's everything. It brings back a lot of memories for a lot of people, and you're going to put a smile on a lot of faces here in town.
Yep. Thanks for being with us, Ken. I look forward to continuing to work with you, and love rubbing it in that he lost in his senior year to Holliston.
I'll be back. Okay, got some thank yous still here. I want to thank the lovely Lisa on the camera, Dunn, Cronin, and Dennis Bergeron in the control room. And Ken, thank you again very much for all you've done. It's a fabulous job. So that's it. Good job from you.
Another day in Panther football history.
There you go. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.